Professor Edu is a professor in strategy. Originally qualified and practiced as a chartered accountant, a chartered architect, before working with PricewaterhouseCoopers as a consultant, after which he moved into public service. I would like to introduce Professor Edu, if you could rise so everybody will see him properly.
It's a pleasure to be here this evening to participate in this lecture relating to the extractive industries in Africa, in West Africa, and in Ghana, because I'll be looking at issues relating to the continent and also Ghana as a whole. I'd like to congratulate the organizers of this lecture for foresight in putting together what is an excellent program that would allow us to deliberate on an important sector of African economies that, if well managed, has the capacity to determine and shape the future strength and prosperity of several economies on our continent. We'll soon have a lecture on the subject of developing resource-based industrialization to drive economic growth in Ghana, to be delivered by Henry, the Henry entry, after which we can hear the views of some eminent panelists, I believe, assembled for the session. I will limit my presentation, therefore, to the value chain of the integrated aluminium industry to touch on a couple of issues. Briefly, we'll look at the global demand trends shaping the industry, and then examine how Africa's foray into this sector in our attempts at creating an integrated aluminium industry in countries with the potential to do so, and in particular examine the steps the government of Ghana has taken to build an integrated aluminium industry anchored on exploiting the full aluminium value chain with a focus on value addition as an essential pillar of an industrial strategy that we believe has the capacity to propel Ghana into the next stage of industrialization. The global integrated aluminium industry has seen significant developments over the past 10 years or so. In this time frame, we have witnessed a significant growth in demand and interest in the metal. Aluminium has, in that time, risen to become a commodity of real value. It is indeed the most abundant metal found in the Earth's crust, and is today used for a variety of applications in the automotive industry, where the trend is to build lighter vehicles to reduce emissions, and this is driving demand, huge demand. We also see it used in the building and construction industry, and increasing use in packaging and industrial design, and of course in the aerospace industry, where it has become the preferred metal for building aircraft and engines. Aluminium, as we know, continues to be heavily used in the making of household appliances and utensils. So for those of us who are old enough to remember something called dadeseng, dadeseng is made from aluminium. Some have rightly termed it as the metal of the future. Aluminium is produced in 4 stages. I'm sure many of us who are in that sector would agree with me. The mining of bauxite, 1. Mainly large-scale open cast mining. 2. The conversion of bauxite to alumina in a refinery. 3. The conversion of alumina through electronic smelting to primary aluminium in a smelter. And finally, semi-fabrication to produce extrusions, castings, cables, etc. And that's downstream, where a lot of the items that we use, household items and other manufactured items, are made of. Driving the value chain of an integrated aluminium industry will require active participation in each stage of the process, the 4 processes that I mentioned, to benefit from the increasing value that will result to an economy. Globally, while the last 2 years have proved challenging for the sector, we have more recently also seen a significant demand and clear positives for the industry. In Africa, our experience in building an integrated aluminium industry in countries with the factor advantages of indeed the intent to do so has been different, though as a continent we are collectively endowed with bauxite and potentially access to the cheap power that is essentially necessary to the success of this industry. In West and Central Africa, the activities of the aluminium sector have occurred almost entirely in 4 countries: Guinea, Ghana, Cameroon, and Nigeria more recently. There are bauxite mining operations across the region. Ghana has mined bauxite since the 1940s. Guinea is the 4th largest producer of bauxite globally, with some production estimates of around 20 million metric tons. Indeed, I visited Guinea a few weeks ago, and they say that they produced up to 20 million metric tons in 2016 and 30 million metric tons in 2017. Guinea also has the world's largest bauxite reserves, with over 30% of the world's known bauxite reserves. Alumina has been produced and exported in Guinea, while aluminium has been smelted in Ghana and Cameroon. Guinea is today looking to retrofit its refinery through an arrangement with China. However, Guinea has no smelter to date, due in part to the challenges of producing cheap power for this industry. There are 3 or so smelters in Southern Africa, all operated by BHP Billiton, and 2 others in West and Central Africa, 1 in Cameroon and 1 in Ghana. In 2010, Africa had less than 6% of the global primary aluminium production. Today, no country in Africa has a fully integrated aluminium industry containing the essential components of the full value chain. Now, to look at the impact of value addition, the need to build a fully integrated value chain for aluminium cannot be overstated, given the potential to spur industrial development and growth. We therefore have a choice as a nation, as a continent, to choose to remain primary producers and forever at the mercies of fluctuating commodity prices, or to move up the value chain to refining, smelting aluminium, and finally producing value-added aluminium products that the world will buy at a premium. At the basic level, bauxite is traded in the region of $40 to $60 per metric ton, depending on the grade of the bauxite. Alumina will fetch some $350 to $400 per metric ton. So you see something like a quadruple effect. While aluminium is trading at near $2,000 per metric ton. Now, these figures I've given to you, plus or minus, will change, depending on the exigencies of the market, demand, and other environmental issues in the marketplace. Aluminium is still expected to see significant upside in the years ahead. Indeed, when we visited Guinea, we were informed that they have different sites for their bauxite mines, and there are some sites they say have very high quality bauxite, and some of them can fetch beyond $10,000 to just be conservative per metric ton. The multiplier impact of an integrated aluminium industry on an economy is quite clear. The potential to drive employment growth directly and indirectly, because there are other side benefits that will accrue to a country once you get into the integrated aluminium industry value chain. Potential for upscaling skills, transfer of technology, transfer of skills, and the large-scale industrial development that industry will derive is well proven. Port facilities, railway infrastructure, power plants, which will also drive investment and further employment, collectively making a real contribution to economies. Essential to this, though, will be a clear role for government to set the right regulatory and fiscal environment to encourage investment, the need for cheap power sources, since power is the main variable conversion cost in the smelting process, underpinned by a clear commitment for pricing at levels and consistent supply levels that will guarantee global competitiveness. Now, I come to Ghana. That's probably going to be the last paragraph before John the Baptist takes a seat. Ghana has since the 1920s, when the VRA, the Volta River Power Project was conceived, looked to establish an integrated aluminium industry to exploit the full value chain, mining local bauxite with reserves in excess of 900 million metric tons. We call this inferred because we are undertaking further studies to obtain what we call our proven reserves as a nation. We have gone through that to refining and smelting. We've conceived all this as something that the nation should have and could possess. This vision has not been realized, however, for varied reasons, largely as a result of available and reliable cheap power source. So today, through the singular drive of our president, we are on the verge of driving a plan to realize the vision of an integrated aluminium industry. As was announced in Ghana's 2018 budget statement, we will soon, and actually that has been done, but Parliament went into recess the same week this bill was submitted. So we are waiting for Parliament to reconvene or convene in May, and the bill will be deliberated upon in our efforts to set up a Ghana Integrated Bauxite and Aluminium Development Authority. This will create a vehicle that will allow us to drive the development of integrated aluminium industry in Ghana in a coordinated manner, very important, and bringing together the essential elements that will be required for us to be successful. What will we do differently? So that's a question that we need to answer, because we said that in the past, efforts have been made to establish an integrated aluminium industry. We were successful. So what will we do differently? It's a valid question. Government will define its role very clearly and develop a strong regulatory regime for the industry. Will develop the right tax regimes that will attract the right investment. Will ensure and guarantee availability of cheap power. Today we're looking at other options. Look at how we can set tariffs over the long term to ensure we can be globally competitive. The rationale for an integrated aluminium industry will be clearly set. We'll ensure that we build a structure that would attract significant private sector participation. Key, very, very important. attracting both foreign and local investors to work in partnership with government. And over time, government will seek to drive even further private sector participation and look to build a publicly traded enterprise that is world-class, profitable, and a significant net contributor to our fiscal revenues. We will as such look to partner the private sector with a clear commitment to build the full value chain of an integrated aluminium industry over a reasonable time frame, including fully exploiting our reserves, building a refinery, and revamping, expanding, and leveraging our smelter. We will create the right conditions for success to clearly demonstrate our commitment. Together with our strategic partner or partners, we will define and communicate a clear roadmap and master plan. We'll define milestones for realizing this vision over time. For Ghana, as in the case for other African countries with the potential to build an integrated aluminium industry, such as Guinea and Cameroon, a major issue is the availability of power in sufficient quantities over the long term. And solving this issue for us is the key to establishing an integrated aluminium industry. We are in this regard committed to finding a solution that is sustainable and does not create other power shortage or pricing issues for other sectors of our economy. Finally, we are resolved to moving forward in this regard, under no illusions whatsoever that this will be hard. But in part, this is why we choose to focus on this sector, realizing the significant impacts it will have on our economy in the long run in employment, training, and skills transfer, building industrial parks for value-added products for the local market and export. We're fully aware of the benefits of the full value chain, and we intend to drive this in its entirety. The time has come for Africa to realize its true potential. The time is now for Ghana to realize its full potential. In Ghana, we have a vision that has been set out of how we will realize this development, the integrated aluminium industry in its entirety. Thank you very much for your attention.
The Prof, I think you have mentioned a lot of experts that are working on the bauxite development organization. I haven't heard you mention anything about, we have very excellent social relation experts. I haven't heard you mention that. All about is technical. But most of the project historically that have stalled come from issues around social relations. It has started already. I know people walk from Chebi to Accra wanting to meet president to not mine in the Chebi or so. And I know it's going to come from because historically most of these communities have not been treated well by these mining companies. It is changing. So I want to look at the fact that civil societies, you will encounter all these hurdles. Is it because it is government, so they're going to use their military powers to silence the communities to mine, whether communities like it or not, or you have a strategy that you are going to use to make sure communities actually benefit, environmental impacts are mitigated, so that the project, the net benefit of the project, the net impact of the project is beneficial to the stakeholders.
The Ghana Institute of Geoscience. We've tried mining before as a country. I think we ran state mining companies before, and we did to those companies what we do best. We ran them down. But we cannot have mining actually sparing economic development if all we get is 10%, for instance, carry-free interest, or employment for our youth who can get laid off when companies suffer a little discomfort. So for me, it's interesting to talk about bauxite. We've had bauxite for some time. We've been mining it for many decades. The question is, we are collateralizing it for certain money from foreign countries. Professor, do we know the resource or reserves we have in the bauxites?
I'm from Fidelity Bank, but I'm asking this in my personal capacity. My question goes to the Honorable Professor and my good friend Henry. In Henry's presentation, he referenced the PwC research about profitability or the failure factors of a mining corporation, and he attributes about 92% to management factor. Now, my question to the Honorable Professor, we see these fantastic ideas that you're expatiating, which you alluded to as having explained everything. I think the bane of our country has been the issue of sustainability. I see this government coming up with policies and ideas as to how they're going to revamp the mining industry or our industrialized economies. And yet, a new government takes over and there's a change in direction altogether. Don't you think it is perhaps because there's no joint stakeholder negotiation or modulation of these strategies? That is why whenever there's a change in government or other things, we see these fantastic ideas being put to the shelves. And Henry, you were giving us a hypothetical model as of the Ghana mining development or something, where you're talking about the way forward. In recent developments, we see that most of the multinational mining corporations are resorting to what they call, I think, agency mining or something, where they are outsourcing the exploration to sub-companies to take it up. And they are attributing that to cost factor and efficiency. I don't see that in tandem with the model that you are proposing. How do you marry the two? Thank you.
Yeah, the committee has decided that we need to know what we have. All the time we wait for the investor to come and tell us what is there. And therefore, bargaining from there, you are bargaining from the losing end. So we are spending money, we are spending time, we are spending resources to define to the best of our ability what we think is there. Then we can take it from there. Okay? So within the next 6 months, we had the money last week after waiting for so long. So a consultant was appointed today to do that study for us. We've given the consultant all the data that we had previously. Okay, so they'll look at the data and go and do some field drilling, due diligence to check and come up with a figure. Okay, thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Bash Kamek. I work for a company called Asante Gold. I just want to talk about just a small area of what we just discussed. I don't know whether it's going to be a contribution or whatever, but what it is that we did about 6 holes in exploration. That cost us about $1 million. $1 million is a lot of money. So imagine that if we are doing so many of them, there are also chances that you will not even get anything. When that happens, it means that that money that you put in there is lost. Okay, the reason why I'm bringing this up is that when you look at the presentation that he did, in Ghana we are getting about 64% of tax. 66 coming from us. Now, if you look at Africa now, Ghana used to be second in terms of gold production. Now it's Burkina Faso who is taking the second position. We are moved to the third position. Why is that happening? More because of some of these taxes and so on that we have in the system. Now, I just want to draw everybody's attention to this, particularly the youth. Everybody thinks that yes, they are taking all the money away. We should get so much from them. Right, precise at the bottom of the lake issues or soil. What I want to say is that we need to look at the way we demand from some of these investors who come into our countries. You see this man sitting here. We went to school together. We all worked for Obuasi. This man 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 worked for Obuasi. This one worked for Obuasi. All because there was a company called AGC. Okay, a foreign company at that time, I would say that they were actually duping us. They had a 45% share in the company. Yet, they did anything that they wanted. They even brought in people who were complete illiterates as experts. But today, and they bring such people in. This man worked for 3 years as an expert somewhere. For all you know, he was getting how much will you get? Let's say for $10,000 a month. He's not the only person. There are so many of them who went through AG. So if every year he brings in 100,000, you work for 3 years, 300,000 per person. If you are 10 of them, how many are you bringing? So what I want to say is that it is best for us to look at getting people in, instead of looking at how much we can get from somebody at the same time. You also realize that if you invest in Ghana, one person, a job, will bring about 28 people or so. So it's very important that we encourage people to come. There are a lot of things that he's mentioning. Let's put all that together. And let's change the attitude of, no, it's our gold and so on. If you go to my village, there's gold and nobody knows there's gold. Until somebody comes from somewhere, puts his drill there, establishes that there's gold. As soon as that happens, and you see all the chiefs, it's our gold, it's our this. Government takes 10% because the land is for us. But we are pushing too much, and it makes it difficult for foreigners to come into this country. What I'm asking all of you to look at, if you look at the whole value stream, there's so much that we benefit instead of looking at only taxes. So what I'm saying is that let's look at things again. Taxes are not enough, but rather look at the whole value stream. Everything that we do in Ghana, we look at the cheapest cost, which doesn't help us. What is important is to look at the whole value stream, the life cycle of whatever you are paying for. And I think that's where the value is. Thank you.
Invest in projects using your own money. We will pay you back, but we will not pay you back with cash or in cash. We will pay you back with natural resources. So what we did was that we signed a few memoranda of understanding. We returned to Ghana and we went through the process of having further discussions with 3 companies. We signed memoranda of understanding. We came through with one of them. Some did not come through with us to the end of the journey, but we came through with one of them. So the plan that we put together is that they will come into Ghana with money brought in on the back of their balance sheets. They will undertake social infrastructural projects. And at the end of it, we have worked out the economics with them, the numbers with them, to be paid over a certain period with bauxite. Now, the question then would be, if we pay them with bauxite in its raw form, how long will it take us to pay wholly? And so the plan is that we are putting ourselves under pressure. And the pressure is that we must achieve the integrated aluminium project or the vision within the shortest possible time. And therefore there is an addendum to the first project with the Chinese, which is come in, undertake infrastructure projects with your own money, we'll pay you with bauxite, with getting a partner as quickly as possible to come in, or partners, right? So a partner or partners to come in and look at the mining, bauxite mining with us, refinery project with us, and the retrofitting of Kwaku, which is our smelter, with us. So we can get one company which may have expertise across the value chain, or we may have a company that is really into refinery and says, we want to look at refinery, and another company which will say, I'm interested in retrofitting Kwaku. Producing or adding value to the raw material, which is your bauxite, raw bauxite, is very important. With that, you would be able to pay faster, and you would be able to get into your integrated value chain faster. So the plan of the government is that we want to get to a stage where we can have our refinery built, our smelter, which is Vaco, which we have now, retrofitted as quickly as possible and expanded its capacity from the 200,000 metric tons which it has now, which it is not even doing half of. It's now doing 20% of the 200,000 metric ton capacity, which is 40,000 metric tons capacity. So once we're able to get to 200,000, the plan is to expand further to 1 million or 2 million metric tons. We can again extrapolate and say that Guinea has bauxite. Can we get into an arrangement with Guinea so that they come in here and refine their bauxite? There are all sorts of permutations and combinations. So we are not selling our nation to China. We are not paying for these projects with money or cash. We are going to pay with natural resources. We will start with bauxite. And in fact, the interesting thing is that we have a moratorium. So we negotiated the moratorium in such a way that by the time we are ready to pay, we should have a refinery in place. So we've been thinking strategically, and that is the kind of arrangement that we have in place. And the plan is for us to have the Integrated Bauxite and Aluminium Authority established as quickly as possible so that we can have an organization that is dedicated to bauxite, aluminium, and drive the process, the commercial process of getting investors and joint venture partners to come in so that we can run through the whole issue of the integrated aluminium industry. So that's I've just explained everything to you in terms of. There are many studies which have been undertaken since, you can say, since the 1940s or 50s, when we started thinking about the Akusubu Dam and Vaco and all that. What our committee did, and I have some experts here, experts in the bauxite industry who are members of the committee that is running this integrated aluminium industry project. So what we did was to gather all these studies over the decades, and we've been able to put together some data, working with the Minerals Commission and with the Geological Survey Authority. We have a data center at the Minerals Commission as we speak today, so we have some information. Today, we managed to meet with somebody who has been selected through competitive bidding, and we seem to have an agreement. This company will be working with us to help us to establish our proven bauxite reserves. In fact, if we had gotten the money earlier, by now we would be probably halfway through the project. So we are working towards, we are looking at having some results coming through within 6 months, when we hope to have our proven bauxite reserves. The plan is to have a feasibility study and to have a bankable feasibility study. If you ask me to give you a figure regarding our inferred bauxite reserves, the figure which I can mention to you is 900 million metric tons, and it's based on a study which was undertaken for Vaco in 2009. So we have the soft version and we have the hard version. So if you ask me for a figure, that's what I'll tell you. I can also tell you that within the same context, we have figures for Ninahin, we have figures for Chibi, we have figures for N'Djamena, and we have figures for Awaso. But we want to say to ourselves that they are all inferred. And so working very closely, the plan is that within 6 months, we want to be able to come up with our own reserves, proven. Now that does not mean that when an investor lands in this country and is interested in joining us in a venture in the industry, that investor or potential investor will not undertake their own studies. It is likely that they would also want to undertake their own studies. The good thing about having your own proven reserves is that if they come up with a figure, you have your figure, You have the processes that you've been through, and you can go way back to show the history and the proof of this, the studies, the assaying, the tests which have been undertaken in labs, and everything. You have everything to prove that this is the process. We have some great environmental community relations persons in our team, people who have done it before. Maybe they've before seen it, done it, and they are with us. Today, at the negotiation table with the consultant who is coming on board, this person actually chaired for us. He said, hey, you chair it for us. And very clearly, before the geologist or this consulting company goes to the site, groundwork should have been done relating to opinion leaders, chiefs, the citizens of the sites that we would want to undertake the studies in. So that's one. Two, in the project document that we have, where we're saying a company should come into Ghana and invest so much in social infrastructure projects with Ghana, we actually have budgeted, I don't want to mention the figure, but it's a huge amount for development projects, relationship building, and linkages with communities in the areas that are affected. That amount is a huge amount that's been budgeted for these areas because we've learned lessons from the Obuasis of this world, from the Tapas of this world, and we don't prestige, and we do not want to repeat such mistakes. So a huge amount has been devoted or allocated for development projects in these communities.
So that whatever strategies we have as a nation, policies we have as a nation, we can continue, and these policy strategies will transcend governments, or if you like, parties. And that's the reason why we go to Parliament. So in Parliament, for example, the committee that would deliberate on the bill that has been placed before Parliament will be a joint committee of the parties, right? So all the parties in Parliament, I shouldn't mention names, so I need not mention names. So once we are able to go through that, and there's a bill which has been passed, which becomes an act, and out of that, an organization is established to run the affairs of a particular sector in this nation, it comes to stay. Now, we are, of course, looking at various ways of locking in top executives who are appointed, because our constitution gives the president the mandate to appoint over let me not exaggerate, say about 4,000 different chief executives in different positions. That's the kind of power that we have given to our president. And so that is what pertains. The chief executive shall be appointed by the president and so on in consultation with the Council of State, and we have a member of the Council of State here. So it goes right to our constitution, and if we really want to see, I mean, there's been debate about winner takes all. That concept should be looked at again, and if possible, we need to make changes. That goes right to the constitution. And I believe that what we need to do is to get bipartisan or multi-partisan buy-in. We do that a lot through Parliament. And really, if a government is one that is a listening government, and a government that respects the rule of law, when you are appointed or when you win an election, I think it's important to respect various policies that have been put in place by government, which really are not partisan in a way, but have been established in the interest and for the development of a nation. And that is what I'd like to see as we move forward. The bill is crafted in such a way that there will be continuity. It does not end, or if you like, positions and governing councils' terms do not end with the departure of a particular government. So we expect to see the officials who have been appointed transcending governments. And that is one sure way we can ensure that we get policies, strategies, and plans that have been put in place to transcend particular terms of government. For us as a nation, we believe that we can do better based on past experiences we've had and all that. And we are a growing democracy. If you look at Singapore and Malaysia and many of the Asian tigers that we tout very strongly and so admirably, what you'd realize is that Lee Kuan Yew was in power for up 10 years. He was there for a very long time, so you saw continuity. But we've gone beyond that as a nation with our constitution and democracy and the way we govern. What we have to do is to mature in our democracy and mature in our governance if we want to see development in our nation. Otherwise, what we're going to see is that after every 4 years, the story building will be pulled down, and then we'll start building again. Or after every 8 years, pull down the story building and we start. And there is no way a nation can develop that way. So we want to see a bit more maturity, and I think that we all in this house and in this room have a role to play in ensuring that our democracy matures, and that we have leaders in parliament, in the executive, in the judiciary, in all arms of government, and all walks of life, civil society as well, who see beyond mere partisanship. And so it's a responsibility that we all have to live up to. So that's what I can say.